They screwed it up. They screwed it up. This is not the right microphone. I have to fix the input. Okay, hold on. Give me a second. All right. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, internet anomalies, what is happening? Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. If not, I hope that today's stream makes your day at least a little bit better. I'm your host, Dan Newby, coming to you live from the East Coast of the United States of America, and today we are going to be talking about a bunch of different news topics. I have not been live for a minute, so I wanted to make up for that by hopping on here and covering some news that I've been meaning to get around to covering. I just haven't had the opportunity to cover yet. Hold on, give me 1 second, because I'm still getting used to the whole multi-streaming thing. I currently am not only live on YouTube like I normally am, but I'm also live on Kick as well as Rumble. And I have this app for multi-streaming that seems a little finicky, but you know, has been working for me for the most part. Now, unfortunately, there's a bit of a glitch with the Rumble chat, which I'm trying to get straightened out. So if you guys send me chats, I might not catch those right at the beginning of the stream. I'm still actually getting all of that to load right now as we speak. But yeah, so one thing that you guys have noticed, I'm sure, is that typically it takes me a while to actually to get through all the stories that I want to cover. And so a lot of times I will be like, hey guys, I'm gonna cover all these stories, and I end up not being able to cover all those stories. I'm going to try to avoid that during this stream. So I've lined up a bunch of different topics for me to discuss, and I'm gonna just cover as many of those as I can. And if there are any that I can't cover, what I plan on doing is covering those. Well, let me see. I plan on covering those tomorrow, so it'll be like half and half. But I do want to follow up on some updates regarding the what is it? Regarding the war in Iran, or the Iranian conflict, because I do think that is big, massive, not just national news, but international news. So feels kind of important for me to cover. So I will be delving into that. Let's see, what else? Also, I did want to talk about what was it? I do want to react to some James Tallarico clips. I don't know if I'll be able to get to everything, but I think especially like as a Christian, it's important for me to discuss and talk about, just because unfortunately I think he's leading a lot of people astray, and just like a really poor representation of what Christian values are specifically. Not a big fan of him, so I will be discussing that if I have the time to do so. I'm frankly not sure if I will or not. Apparently there's a social stream update. So Social Stream Ninja is the software that I use for my unified chat on my end. So I'm hoping that this fixes whatever problem it was facing. I did see some recent news that Twitch is now allowing unified chats. Now, Twitch not allowing unified chats was one of the major reasons why I wasn't streaming on Twitch. But now that unified chats are coming to Twitch, I'm actually a little tempted to multi-stream to Twitch as well. I've got the internet bandwidth for it. And I actually literally have a Twitch account too. I just don't know if there's like a massive appetite for the type of content that I make on Twitch, which is like center-right political analysis and commentary. You know, Twitch is kind of like a left-wing social media platform essentially, so I'm not sure how much those people will appreciate my input, but I also could serve as like a bit of a unicorn, because the only other right-wing political commentators on Twitch are like Asmongold. It'd be good for him to have a bit of a counter though, because he does go kind of crazy sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. That's something that's been on my mind lately. I didn't see the news that long ago. I saw it like a week ago, but ever since I saw the news, I was like, you know what? I should give that a try. All right, hold on. There we go. Okay, so it looks like it's finding all of the streams. Let me see. Let me see. Nope. Rumble is still not working. Kind of a shame. Oh, it says stop connecting. Hold on, stop the current connection before it continues. Okay, hold on, here we go. None to be VODs is now live on Rumble. Oh no, it's still not working. Boo! This app is so finicky, it sucks. This is okay. Well, actually, you know what? I gotta be honest. I gotta be fair. It's the Rumble integration is what sucks. That's the only thing. Okay, hold on. Wait a second. Is this gonna work now? Oh, I think it might work now. Hold on. I'm gonna be like this. Okay, hold on. Thanks everyone for tuning in. All right, this is gonna be my test message just to make sure that the multi-stream thing is working. And we'll see if that message gets sent to all the places. I know that on my end, it doesn't always show up properly. It's actually pretty weird. Oh, let me try sending another message. That is weird. It's not. Yeah, no, messages aren't getting sent out at all. That's not good, because I want to be able to check my chat as I stream. It's kind of important. And it's not even working for YouTube. Like there was an update, so I updated. It's not even working for let me see, for like YouTube and Kick, which was working perfectly before. So I don't know what's going on with that. Here, hold on. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do test. See if it comes through on my end. Okay, hold on. Test. See if that comes through on my end. Okay, that does come through on my end. Kind of weird that the Kick feed is not. There we go. Okay, and then test. All right, there we go. Everything is all coming through. Everything is all looking gorgeous and beautiful. So I think that I'm good, at least as far as reading messages. Now, sending messages, I don't think that's going to work. I'll try to send another test message, but it's not going to go anywhere. It's sent into the wind. Whew, and now it's gone. But anyways, before I start talking on the political topics, I do want to discuss the Bro SMP. A lot of you guys who watch me, especially those of you who watch me live, are fans of the Bro SMP, and I do appreciate you guys for tuning in to the Bro SMP. But we have not been going live for a while, and a really big factor in that has been that one of the members of the Bros MP has taken a break from Minecraft, and it's actually kind of interesting because he's been taking a break. This is King Corn, by the way. He's been taking a break from Minecraft, and for a while, literally, the Bros MP was like the last remnant, the last victim of him taking a break from the game, because he was taking a break from the game for everything except for the Bros MP. But now he's stepped away from the Bros MP as well. So we've decided for now to put the Bros MP on pause. You know, the other siblings who are members of the SMP enjoy playing on the server, and I don't mind them. It's a fun thing to do. I love playing on the server, but we've kind of been of the mindset of we don't really want to exclude this sibling of ours, like just because he's not on the server, we don't want to just like be playing on there for months and months and months. So without him and kind of like leaving him behind. So that's kind of where we are on the Bros MP. Now, I want to bring the Bros MP back as soon as possible. If the man is like, I want to hop on the server, we're going to play again tomorrow, then I would be down. But for now, he's taking a break, so I'm going to honor that. And so that's the reason why we haven't been on the Bros MP as of late. You know, if you guys noticed that it was missing, you know, I'm apologize for, you know, not being able to bring you that content, but at the same time, I have no qualms about, you know, taking a break because one of the siblings is taking a break from the game as well. So, but that's kind of what's been going on with that. If you guys were curious, sorry, that's gonna be that's what's been going on with that. If you guys are curious. All right, so we do have the story, which is massive news. I don't know if this is getting the play and the coverage that it deserves, but it really should be covered a lot more, especially for people who care a lot about free speech and about censorship. So we have this massive headline here from the BBC. It says, former counterterrorism head investigated by FBI over alleged leaks. Now, this is not, this is kind of sugarcoating the subject. So what actually happened was, I'm sure the article is going to go into this. We're going to read the article together. Joe Kent was a member of Donald Trump's administration. He is a high-ranking counterterrorism official, and he abruptly decided to resign from his post because he was upset with how the Iran war was being, or the conflict in Iran was being conducted. He was like, you know, there was no evidence saying that Iran was posing an imminent threat to the United States of America. So, you know, we really shouldn't have gone into conflict with them. And then he was just like, peace out, y'all. So that happened literally within, I think, 24 hours of this information getting released. Now, I've been hearing some people say, oh, this was an ongoing investigation, which maybe it's true, maybe it's not, because you have to be aware of the fact that, you know, the government isn't going to tell you the truth all the time. So is this the type of thing where the government would lie and say, oh, he's always been under investigation, when really, like, no, he wasn't, and this is just retaliatory? That's certainly possible, and within the realm of possibility. I'm not saying that that's what happened, but certainly, you know, in there as far as, you know, what one could reasonably expect a state to do. But anyways, let's continue reading this article here. So, Joe Kent is a longtime Trump supporter and decorated veteran of the U.S. military. The FBI is investigating Donald Trump's former top counterterrorism official who resigned from the role earlier this week over alleged leaks, sources have told CBS News, the BBC's U.S. partner. Joe Kent is under investigation in connection with alleged leaks of classified information, with sources telling CBS that the probe began before his departure as U.S. National Counterterrorism Center Director. Like I said, you know, it's up to you to decide whether or not this is something that you believe. Announcing his resignation on Tuesday, Kent said that he could not support the war in Iran in good conscience, and that the country posed no imminent threat to the U.S. claim, or to the U.S., a claim the White House dismissed. Right, the White House has very much been like, oh, Iran poses a threat to the United States of America. The BBC contacted Kent for comment regarding the leaks allegation. The FBI declined to comment. The probe is being handled by the FBI's criminal division and has been underway for for some time, one source told CBS. Shortly after Kent, well, actually, I will say this though. Okay, if you've got an independent source saying, this has been underway for some time, then that's a little bit different than just like the government saying that. So, that, to be fair, that's indication that maybe this isn't retaliatory. This is just something like legitimate that, because of innocent before proven guilty and everything, you don't want to make this information known because it kind of makes you look bad, right? If you were leaking sensitive information. Also, if you, the person that you suspect of leaking information doesn't know that you think they're leaking information, then they're going to continue leaking information if they're actually leaking information. So, there are many reasons why you'd want to keep this private and secret if this is indeed what's been happening. But hey, now that he is leaving his post, he can't leak information anymore, so you don't have to worry about that. Shortly after Kent resigned, former Deputy White House Chief of Staff Taylor Budowich claimed Kent was often at the center of national security leaks, but did not specify what they were. He also claimed Kent spent all of his time working to subvert the chain of command and undermine the President of the United States, which is rather dramatic language, but that's how this administration loves to speak. In a letter addressed to President Trump announcing his resignation, Kent said it was clear the war in Iran was started due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Yeah, he had a whole screed that he posted online saying stuff like that. The Anti-Defamation League, in a U.S. anti-Semitism monitor, said in a statement that accusations in Kent's resignation letter traffic in old age anti-Semitic tropes. Why isn't it traffic in age-old anti-Semitic tropes? That's weird. Speaking to right-wing podcaster Tucker Carlson on Wednesday evening, Kent repeated the claim that the decision to attack Iran was led by Israel. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that Joe Kent went to speak to Tucker Carlson. I don't listen to Tucker Carlson anymore, but honestly, I highly suspect that if there's anyone on the right who was most likely to be a foreign asset, I think it would probably be Tucker Carlson. Like, I could easily see Tucker Carlson being like a foreign asset controlled by especially Russia, maybe China, but not nearly as much as Russia. Just the way that he was really cozying up to Vladimir Putin and chumming it up in Moscow made it clear to me that he's extremely on friendly terms with Russia. Also, he supported kind of more authoritarian, anti-democratic, maybe not anti-democratic, but anti-freedom policies of Russia and China when he deems them to solve cultural or societal maladies, praising China for limiting how many video games or how long you can play video games in the privacy of your own home, stuff like that. Kind of made me feel like Tucker Carlson's an authoritarian, chumming it up with foreign adversaries like Russia really seems like a foreign asset to me. So it is interesting, very interesting, that Joe Kent went to speak with Tucker Carlson. Now, I do wonder now, was this information getting leaked to Russia? Right? That would be interesting. I don't think we know yet, but that would certainly be interesting. But yeah, let's keep on going here. It says he told the former Fox News host that there had been no intelligence suggesting that Iran would launch a sneak attack on the U.S. and that Iran was not on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon. That's interesting because literally everything that I've been hearing has been indicating that Iran not only is on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon, but has nuclear weapons. In fact, the strikes that Trump did on Iran might not have even hampered, I'm talking 6-7 months ago. They might not have even hampered Iran's ability, nuclear capabilities, right? There are rumors that were saying that Iran had smuggled the goods out of the area that Trump ended up bombing. If that's true, then I absolutely believe that Iran has nuclear weapons at this point, or they're very close, or they were very close to getting them before they got bombed. Says he also alleged that some of the government's key decision makers had limited access to Trump in the lead up to the Iran war, and that there had been no robust debate ahead of the strikes. Kent added that he had a great conversation with Trump about his resignation, and that he believed that he and the president had departed personally on good terms. I mean, the way that Kent spoke, it was very like aggressive and inflammatory. It didn't really seem like it was a on good terms type of walking out, at least from what I could tell. So that kind of surprised me that that's something that that Joe Kent would say. Now, it is interesting if this is true. It says that government's key decision leaders had limited access to Trump to lead up to the Iran war, and that there had been no robust debate ahead of the strikes. That's not great. The whole reason that a president has a cabinet is not only to compartmentalize the duties of the president of the United States or the power of the president of the United States, but also to provide advice on very crucial, very sensitive, very important things, such as deciding to strike a country. So that's a little disappointing if this is indeed true, that there wasn't the opportunity for there to be debates and discussions with Trump or regarding the strikes. Yes, that's not good. Now, here's a clip though. They included a clip embedded in the article.
I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security. I didn't know him well, but I thought he seemed like a pretty nice guy. But when I read his statement, I realized that it's a good thing that he's out, because he said that Iran was not a threat. Iran was a threat. Every country realized what a threat Iran was. The question is whether or not...
Yeah, the claim that Iran doesn't pose any threat to the United States of America does rather surprise me. Iran has positioned themselves repeatedly as a state as enemies of the United States of America, and at this point, they are naked and unafraid when it comes to their nuclear weapons program. Like, they're developing nuclear weapons now. They're not ashamed of saying that they're developing nuclear weapons, or afraid of saying that they're developing nuclear weapons. So it does seem, it's a little strange whenever I hear people say, Iran poses no threat to the United States of America. It's like, even if you're going to say that Iran can't bomb the United States mainland, which that might be true. I do need to do more research on that. They've targeted American bases. They fired upon American bases, right? I don't think that Americans should really be looking at situations where Iran literally is and has been bombing American military bases, and they're like, well, that's cool. I don't care because it's not on the mainland. Like, that's kind of ridiculous. Like, we must be serious people here.
They wanted to do something about it. And many of the greatest military scholars are saying for years that president should have taken out Iran because they wanted a nuclear weapon. Now,
the one thing that I did find interesting about Joe Kent's initial statement is that if anyone knew that Iran wasn't an immediate threat to the United States of America, it would be someone like Joe Kent, I would imagine. So for Joe Kent to be out there saying publicly and putting his, career and professional reputation on the line to say Iran was not an immediate threat to the United States of America, to me, that does give me some pause, even if he's wrong, right? It's like, why did he think that was the case? Unless, like, he's a foreign asset sowing discord, which, could be the case as well. That I find that very interesting. Following Kent's resignation, the White House dismissed his letter saying the president had compelling evidence that Iran was going to attack the U.S. first. Trump later rebutted Kent's claim, saying he was a nice guy, but that it was a good thing he was out of government, adding that he had always thought that Kent had been very weak on security. Kent, a longtime Trump supporter who unsuccessfully ran for Congress twice, sick burn. No. Was nominated by the president early in his administration and confirmed to his post in July 2025. So this story is rather interesting. There are two ways to look at the situation. One way to look at it is Joe Kent basically was put under investigation by the FBI in retaliation of him publicly saying that Iran did not pose a threat to the United States of America. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is maybe a little bit more of a complex situation where Joe Kent either believes that Iran didn't or doesn't pose a threat to the United States of America, or that he's a foreign asset trying to sow discord, in that it is indeed true that the FBI was investigating him over leaks even before he decided to lambast the United States of America in the Trump administration. Which version of that story you believe is really up to you. This is literally a he said, she said scenario, although I will add that there are a multitude of sources internationally who have been saying, hey, Iran is developing nuclear weapons. Now, whether or not they had a nuclear weapon at the time that America struck them with his most recent conflict, that's certainly something up for discussion. But it's very clear. It's been very clear that Iran has been developing nuclear weapons, wants nuclear weapons, and desires to use them once they have them in their arsenal. All right. Now, this is something that I found to be very, very confusing. It's Trump himself. He's been contradicting himself this entire time. Well, not this entire time, but for most of the time that this conflict in Iran has been going on. So we've got this headline here from the AP. It says, Trump's mixed messages on Iran, winding down the war and easing sanctions, but adding more troops. I mean, fair point. And it's just something I've noticed. He's like, oh, the war is going very well, sends more troops over to different bases. I think that Trump is saying that, things are going well, the war is over, stuff like that, because he understands that constitutional precedent set by the Supreme Court of the United States has sort of dictated that Trump has more or less about a 60-day window in which to perform military actions. And at the end of that time, the troops must come home, or he has to go to Congress and get declaration of war. Now, that's largely based on SCOTUS rulings that don't necessarily adhere to the written text of the Constitution. If you just look at the Constitution, it's pretty clear that Congress has the ability and the authorization to declare war. Trump can't basically do a de facto war constitutionally, internationally, but what Trump is doing is relatively within the bounds of what has been allowed of U.S. presidents so far. Now, with Trump saying things like the war is over, or we're doing a great job, or we're almost finished, etc., that does leave the narrative door open for him to be like, oh, you know what? It just happens to be day 58, and you know what? Mission accomplished. Everybody go home. So I think Trump is kind of like leaving the narrative structure for that sort of argument open. Now, I do think that Trump wants to end things before then, because he doesn't want to be kind of put on a shot clock, and he wants to be able to end the conflict on his terms. I just don't know if that's, likely to happen. I'm not, one to say that Iran is the type of country that can absolutely demolish the United States of America, but they're putting up a bit of a fight because, they do have an arsenal of missiles and other types of weapons. And also, it's not like Iran is Ukraine or something, which, by the way, Ukraine has been putting up a pretty big fight as well. But, Iran, they, for their size, they can pack punches. So, I could absolutely see Iran finding a way to make the conflict last long enough so that by day 60, they're still standing, and they have good control of their part of the region, right? Stuff like the Strait of Hormuz, control over, areas in the region such as that. I could very easily see Iran keeping the conflict lasting long enough to where the U.S. has to step away, and then Iran then has the narrative ability to be like, haha, we won. Even though, at what cost, right? You lost like a dozen leaders. They all got killed and stuff. A bunch of the missile stockpiles and weaponry got destroyed. At the end of the day, if you get the other side to leave, then there is a narrative there where it's like, we won because they left, right? So I think it's probably something that the IRGC is considering too. But anyways, let's go through this article. President Donald Trump frequently contradicts himself, and sometimes in the same speech, social media post, or even sentence. In the past 24 hours, he sent a torn of mixed signals about the Iran war that raised more questions about the direction of the conflict and his administration's strategy. Within the space of a few hours Friday, Trump said he was considering winding down the war. His administration confirmed it was sending more troops to the Middle East, and in an effort to lessen the economic impact on global energy markets, the United States lifted sanctions on some Iranian oil for the first time in decades, relieving some of the pressure that Washington traditionally has used as leverage. The confusing combination of actions deepens a sense among Trump critics that there is no clear long-term strategy for the war the U.S. and Israel launched against Iran. Now in its fourth week, the war remains on an unpredictable path, and a credible endgame is unclear, even as the global economy is being roiled. Winding down the war. After another rough day in the financial markets, Trump said Friday afternoon on a social media network, "We are getting very close to meeting our objectives as we consider winding down our great military efforts in the Middle East." Trump contended the U.S. has adequately degraded Iranian naval, missile, and industrial capacity and prevented Tehran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. The Republican president then suggested the U.S. could pull out of the conflict without stabilizing the Strait of Hormuz, the channel through which about 1/5 of the world's oil supply travels. The strait has been ravaged by Iranian missile, drone, and mine attacks during the World War. I will say this. Clearing out and stabilizing the Strait of Hormuz has to be the top priority of the military conflict moving forward. And here's the reason why. They say it right here. With the Strait of Hormuz, whoever has control of that controls up to 1/5 of the U.S.'s oil supply. Since this conflict has started, gas prices in the United States have been skyrocketing. You know the reason why? It's because of stuff like Iran bombing anyone trying to send oil through the Strait of Hormuz. Donald Trump's number one objective, I think, should be, above all, with this conflict, not leaving the situation internationally worse than it was when he started. And a really easy way to fumble that is not by securing control of the Strait of Hormuz. We've got to find a way to fix this issue. I'm not 100% sure what this is. We could send U.S. military boats out to the Strait of Hormuz, but they would probably get shot at as well. I do think that you might want to take a look at where those missiles are getting launched from, and then destroy those missile sites. I think that is probably something that America has on the table, to be honest. But this is a multi-factor strategy, right? You have not just missiles, but you've also got drones. And you've also got mine attacks. So there are a lot of things that you have to factor in. And I don't think, honestly, with Iran kind of feeling a lot of pain lately with America in Israel's attacks on them, Iran kind of wants to retaliate and make other people feel pain as well. There's no easier way to do that than just ruining the Strait of Hormuz. So unless the world is going to abandon the Strait of Hormuz, which would certainly not help gas prices internationally, frankly, the only way to get Iran to back down is to surrender, to just destroy Iran, right? Or at least destroy, literally all of their military capabilities. I don't know how you take on a multi-factor threat like this. There are probably people more educated in as far as military strategy than I, but this just seems like a difficult thing to do. Unless you sort of convinced Iran to, remove the mines, call back their drones. This is going to be a really difficult thing for us to face moving forward. The Strait of Hormuz will have to be guarded and policed as necessary by other nations who use it. The United States does not Trump wrote. But in another contradiction, he said that the U.S. would help if asked, but it shouldn't be necessary once Iran's threat is eradicated. While oil that traverses the strait is usually bound for Asia or other places rather than North America, the chaos still affects the United States. Oil is bought and sold globally, so a shortage for oil for Asian countries leads to bidding up prices on oil sold to companies in America too. Now, I will say, American oil companies must be pretty happy right now because they're making a lot more money off of their oil. That fact, coupled with an Israeli strike on Iran's gas fields and an Iranian retaliation that crippled a major terminal to ship liquefied natural gas from Qatar, helped tank U.S. equity markets Friday, with the S&P dropping 1.5%. Oh, hey, you know what? I think the S&P is down. Does that mean that we could start caring about Jeffrey Epstein? I think we can start caring about Jeffrey Epstein again, which is very, very crazy, you know? That now that the S&P is down 1.5%, we can start caring about Jeffrey Epstein. Anyways, there was also a sharp increase in U.S. fuel prices and more military might to the Middle East. Even as Trump said the U.S. was close to winding down the war, the administration announced it was sending 3 more warships to the Middle East with about 2,500 additional Marines. It was the second time in the week that the administration said it was deploying more forces to the conflict. The military said some 50,000 are supporting the war effort. Trump has ruled out sending in ground troops, though his administration has hinted at a possible deployment of special forces or similar units. The Marines being sent to the region are an expeditionary unit designed for quick amphibious landings, but the deployment does not mean a ground invasion is certain. Analysts have suggested that it may require the presence of U.S. forces on the ground to immediately secure the strait. The surge in troops came just a day after news emerged that the Pentagon was seeking an additional $200 billion from Congress to fund the war. That extraordinarily high number does not suggest that the war was being wound down. You know, one thing I find interesting is that these news articles are referring to this as a war when technically this is not classified as such, right? Congress alone has the authority to declare war, so I do find this interesting. Sanctions on Iranian oil sales. The administration said it would lift sanctions on the sale of Iranian oil, provided it was already at sea as of Friday. The move was an attempt to help lower skyrocketing energy prices by allowing freer sale of oil that Iran has let pass through the strait. It also extends a financial lifeline to the Iranian government that Trump is targeting. His administration has tried other methods to lower oil prices. It has tapped the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is not great, because those take time to replenish, but I understand the move, and lifted sanctions on some Russian oil. Yet Brent crude remained at $112 per barrel Friday, and analysts say that oil prices are likely to remain high for months, regardless of the next steps in the war. The Iranian oil eventually would have reached another country, but now the United States and its allies can bid on it as well, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent wrote on X. At present, sanctioned Iranian oil is being hoarded by China on the cheap, Bessent wrote. By temporarily unlocking this existing supply for the world, the United States will bring approximately 140 million barrels of oil to global markets, expanding the amount of worldwide energy and helping to relieve the temporary pressures on supply caused by Iran. Even if this is true, this is cope, because China hoarding oil would not be new if this is something that's really been happening. So, you know, even if it's true, this is cope, and this is not the real reason why they're doing this. I think the real reason why they're doing this is that prices are too high. They're trying to get prices lower. Let's see here. While 150 million barrels may seem like a lot, that is only a couple of days worth of oil on the global market. Patrick DeHaan, the head of petroleum analysis at GasBuddy, a U.S. fuel tracking service, said he does not expect the temporary suspension to have a major impact on gas prices. The de facto closure of the strait has a much greater effect, he said. Prices will likely continue to rise so long as the strait remains silent. Dehan said. And the contradictions in the position were obvious in Besson's post announcing the move, which labeled Iran the head of the snake of global terrorism. He said the administration would take steps to prevent Tehran from crashing in on the sales, but it was unclear how that would be done. Even among some Republicans, the contradictions triggered rare public skepticism. Bombing Iran with one hand and buying Iranian oil with the other, Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina posted on X Saturday. I will say this, look, a lot of people don't do this, but when it comes to statements that are made publicly, don't follow those nearly as closely as what the state actually decides to do. This is something that I do all the time with free speech, right? The EU and Canada, the UK, not the UK, the UK, Canada, and EU all claim they have free speech, but then they have extremely harsh hate speech policies, which fly in the face of the entire concept of free speech. So, it doesn't matter whether or not you say that you have free speech if you don't actually have it. So likewise, it doesn't matter if Trump says that the war is over when he is ratcheting up, and bolstering the military infantry at certain locations all across the world. So don't listen to Donald Trump on his rhetoric regarding the state of things and how things are going. Pay attention to the actual army men on the ground. All right, I think I do have the time to cover this as well. This is a video from Asmongold Clips. It's called "This is Serious and I must address this now."
Might as well read today's melty as well. What is this? There's a melty of today. Oh no. What is this? Okay,
What's
so Asmon Grift, and it's a video of me talking. Okay. Israel's wars are not our wars. True. I think that we play too big of a role in other countries' military shit. I also wouldn't support any sort of collateral civilian damage, bombing things like the US bombing things that are inside of urban areas. I wonder what changed. I mean, I'm sure it probably wasn't the 30,000 civilians that they mass murdered and body bagged on the sides of the street. They're
not American citizens. They're not American citizens. I understand. Yes, the IRGC is bad. Iran is bad. I even think that you could probably argue, hey, a war against Iran is justified for the sake of, democracy, right? Because the majority of Iran doesn't support the IRGC. They want to see the IRGC overthrown. So, from a democratic as well as self-deterministic perspective, yes, it makes sense but a war is logical, against Iran to free the people. But I will say that, just because a government is really bad and killing its own citizens doesn't more or less justify collateral damage. Collateral damage is a part of war. If you are afraid to admit that or whatever, then you are just you're too much of a wimp to just acknowledge the fact that you're too much of a wimp for war. That's what it is. You're too much of a wimp for war. You can't tolerate war. You can't tolerate one of the realities of life, which is war is necessary at some instances, and war causes deaths that you otherwise would not see, and it causes extremely undesirable deaths. But that's how war always is. This is not a video game, okay? This is not a story. This is not an action film, okay? Wars are almost entirely dirty. Sorry. Wars are almost entirely dirty all the time. And I'm not even saying that it's intentional, right? Civilians die in wars all the time. People put military installations inside of cities. People build cities around government buildings, right? So this idea that, you should only do war if you can't do collateral damage, first of all, just incredibly naive. And second of all, sort of ignores the fact that enemies tend to use that type of dumb kind of wimpy logic against people who might attack them. Right? So that's why you see Hamas having military bunkers under schools and stuff. It's because they know that, it is a deterrent to keep people from attacking them, even when they have military targets that are entirely legitimate. Right. So this idea that, oh, because they're bombing their own people, that makes collateral damage good is very poor logic.
Are all the videos that I've made about Iran.
Before US intervention was even on the table, Asmon was already covering the Iran protests from the get-go. Just like for Mexico, Afghanistan, Indonesia, Spain, Australia, Turkey, and many other countries.
Doing this in Iran, this isn't like the No Kings protest here in the United States. Every single person that's on that street is putting their life on the line. Unarmed Iranian people are risking everything to fight the secret police and rid themselves of 45 years of Islamo-fascist ayatollahs. I don't really see a lot of other creators really talking about the protests at all. You would expect to see tons of people going on and talking about this. The president has gone insane, and then they started killing all of their people.
After Asman made a dozen videos about Iran, Hassan finally started covering the protests and also admitting they were getting slaughtered.
Thousands dead as protests grip Iran. Is Iran collapsing? I think any further military intervention stands to alienate the Iranian people, and it stands to... And why did I change my mind? It's because the Iranian people were begging, screaming, so they wouldn't be mass murdered by their...
Well, also, you have to take into account that, Asmongold is not like the most learned and well-read political commentators. So, him saying, America using their military might would, isolate the Iranians from the United States, or it would alienate them. It would make us seem bad. They wouldn't like us anymore. Like, it was probably an argument born out of ignorance to a degree as well. So that's likely a factor too.
Their own government. That's the reason why I changed the opinion.
For context, an Iranian viewer of Asman sent him this video a few weeks ago, a video which also went viral in Iran.
As many of you may know, I currently live in a country where it's not doing well. I want to give a massive thanks to Asmongold. During the last few years, whatever major events happened inside of Iran, most big content creators didn't really talk about it. Only large creators who kept talking about it consistently was Asmongold. At one point, Asmongold was trending near the top in Iran for several days. That's
crazy.
So genuinely, thank you from me and everyone else who was watching your content from my country.
I am so happy this has happened.
That's right.
Just dramatically tremendous. You know what happened? Think about how bad it is in this country that you have bombs going off and you have people saying thank you. And then after that, turn off the internet. So it wasn't obvious that there was a massive amount of people that are pushing for this.
The Iranian people don't have open internet access, but you do. Why?
Well, because I'm the voice of Iranian. So this is why I have access to internet, just, have our voice.
Hassan praises Iran shutting down protests, finds poetry in it. What?
A #1 leftist political streamer, by the way.
Just for context, this is when they started killing protesters on January 13th.
He lets it all out here. Here he is saying that, you can find poetry in 2,000 to 5,000 people dead.
You like Khomeini tweet when he responsible for killing so many people? Listen, sometimes you can find poetry in the strangest places. Yeah, Persian. I am Persian. I am Persian. I am not Iranian.
You went for...
What is that even? What is that? What is his point there? And I mean, beyond making light of Iran murdering its own people, which is its own independent issue, to be sure. What was he even trying to say?
Full retard, man. Never go full retard.
I mean, they're fucking base, right, guys? How about that? Yeah. Sit there and act like this is like super cool. I would probably kill myself.
Yeah, I think killing terrorists is really based. I think the fucking Iranian government is full of a bunch of psychopath mass murderers. Like, I didn't really want to intervene in Iran if like the people were ambivalent towards it, right? Because who are we to tell them the way that they should have their government? But when you have them out there trying to get away from this regime that's oppressed them for almost 50 years, and on top of that, the regime funds terrorism.
Oh, you want to see who?
But I mean, to be fair, that's not new though. It's not. Iranians wanting to get rid of the IRGC is not new. That's in part why they're so authoritarian, is because, people don't like the state. And so, they have sort of, used this militarized force on the street to brutalize and kill people who protest. It's literally in their law, so that people don't rise up against them. That's in part what those laws are designed to do. It's supposed to keep insurrections and protesting and dissent at bay. It's not like all of a sudden 2025 Iranians were like, oh, I guess we don't like the IRGC now. This is something that's been around for a while. So even back then, if we're using the basis of, well, Iran didn't want our help, I mean, they probably did want our help. They probably would have taken it in 2025 or 2024 if we'd offered it to them.
The musical?
Sure. What is
they do musicals. They're very musical people.
I know. Are you being serious? I know they're singing, but I'm seeing just guns and shoot. This isn't a music video, Hassan.
On top of that, the regime does.
By the way, it's really crazy that like Hassan Piker found joy and just like happiness out of videos of indoctrinated child soldiers from the Houthi rebels singing propagandistic songs about like murdering Jews. Like that's just like kind of crazy. I feel like more people should be talking about that. It's a little wild.
Terrorism, then I think it's a pretty easy decision to do that. I think Hassan, he'd be safer in a world without the Iranian government too. Like, I mean, they might play him on the TV for propaganda. They're playing Hassan's stream on Iran state TV. They're playing his stream.
Of course. Yes, I mean, he is essentially an Axis powers propagandist who lives in the Allies, in the United States of America. Insane. And I was thinking about this the other day. I saw a video of him. Someone was talking about Hassan Piker or whatever and how anti-American he is, which I mean we all know. But I do find it really interesting that if Hassanabi was Chinese and spent all day on his streams bashing China, it was like, oh, I'm gonna visit America and show you guys how cool it is. Like, first of all, he would never be allowed to do that in mainland China to begin with. And even if he then just like left China to go, check out LA and Times Square and then flew back to China, kind of reversing the roles of his visits to China and stuff, he would get arrested and thrown in the Hoosgow. So, it is a little bit ironic that the country that he's praising so much would not allow him to do what he's doing right now.
On state propaganda TV, but they probably don't agree with half of the other views that he has on things either. They're religious zealot psychopaths.
It's already unpopular and it's going to be even more unpopular, right? He's just a dumb fucking rat. He is an immoral person. He's a bad person. He's not even.
I don't see how I'm a bad person whenever you're the one laughing, talking about it being poetic that Khomeini posts something on Twitter after he's like killing his own people.
No, but I mean, a lot of people are using this like intellectual shortcut in order to judge people. I feel like people don't really like making judgments like, oh, is this person like good or bad? They just want to put people in boxes and have a good day, right? So a lot of people online are like, oh, is this person a good person or a bad person? Should I follow them? Should I not? A lot of them are just like, oh, is he a Republican? He's a Republican. Bad person. Boo. Evil, terrible, scum of the earth. But it's like, if you're a Democrat, oh, great person, moral person, wonderful person. So, that's probably the mindset that Hassan Piker is speaking from. It's like, oh, person's right wing. Of course, it's got to be a horrible individual. Of course, it's got to be cool and fun to like make fun of his appearance and other things that ordinarily I would condemn. But it's cool because it's Hassan Piker. But it's cool because it's Asmongold. This is just kind of like the typical left wing response to seeing anything from a right winger.
Like, how's that moral at all?
I am Persian. I am not Iranian. He's a bad person. He's not very intelligent. He's not even banking on the inability of the right to punish him later down the line for his advocacy.
Why would I worry about getting punished for doing the right thing? Why would I even think about that? He's right that there's a lot of people that are angry at me. I make my decisions on things based off of what I think is the right thing to do. I'm just going to say what I think. I'll ask you a question, right? Like, when was the last time Hassan ever went against his audience? Had a big point where he was in contention with his audience? Never.
Asman is actually wrong here. The last time he went against his audience is when they were begging him to stop obsessing over Voldemort.
Watching Asmongold clips is now happening multiple times a day. I'm a 60-month sub and I watch all of Hassan's content, but this is the kind of thing that gets me to click away. Moderation is fine, but 1 to 2 hours per day focusing on that moron is genuinely tiring.
Okay, the one thing I will say though is I think part of the reason why this is the case is that Hassan Piker meticulously curates his audience and fan base to only be members, people who support him, right, and agree with him. So, like I remember, I got banned from Hasanabi's chat on Twitch. I think I'm unbanned now because Hassan got banned, and so that like reset his bans or whatever. But Hassan Piker banned me from his Twitch chat because he was reacting to a video by like the Gravel Institute or something about affirmative action, and I was like, no, I don't like affirmative action, and I'm black or something like that. And then boom, instant ban, right? That is how you cultivate an audience who will always agree with you. So it's not like he's like necessarily afraid of his audience. There might be cases, or to an extent, where he might be afraid in a limited sense, but for the most part, he's, you know, kind of, you know, in a non-pedophilic way, groomed them into being ardent supporters of him, and he has curated the audience to make sure that they are people that agree with him rather than people who don't, so they don't provide very much pushback. So it's not like he just has collected this mob who force him to, you know, sway with them in whatever the ideological winds of the day happens to be blowing. But it's more like these are the people that he has picked to follow him. Of course, these people are going to be in support of what he's saying because he's only picking people who agree with him.
He wants to assign ownership of the Iran war to Israel so he can protect more Islamic terrorism.
Just so we're crystal clear, Asman is against both Islamic terrorism and any Israel meddling in America.
You know, so we have to talk to Elon. Now,
For what? What do you want Elon to do?
We have to fight the fight and give direction to our non-Jewish friends.
That's the fucking problem. Yeah, that's the fucking problem. Holy shit.
I really appreciate how angry he got. That's priceless.
Our non-Jewish friends.
That's the fucking problem. Yeah, that's the fucking problem.
Priceless.
Holy shit.
Whenever Iran, the Iranian regime, is destroyed, the world can improve and become a better place. Now, I think that he's afraid of that because it pokes a lot of holes inside of the hero worship that they have for a bunch of 2-bit dictators that kill their own people and an entire ideology that's built off of a lie.
I can't believe I'm calling Nasrallah base. I mean, listen.
You know what's actually interesting? Hassan Piker reminds me a lot of like Tucker Carlson to an extent. I mean, Hassan Piker is a little bit more extreme, but like the interesting thing about Hassan Piker is that he'll tell you that he supports freedom, but then he'll support these like extremely totalitarian regimes that are like opposed to the United States, you know? Like Tucker Carlson kind of like does the same thing too. He's not as explicit with it, but like with how he has sort of you know, treated Russia with kid gloves, you know, praised things that the state of Russia and the state of China have done, even when they're oppressive. It's just like, you know, it's kind of like two sides of the same coin. I completely understand and sympathize with my left-wing friends who they don't listen to a lick of what Hassan Piker says just because he's too crazy even for them. All right, I'm gonna have to wrap up the stream. Yeah, I'm gonna have to wrap up the stream. Here we go. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. Thanks also to everyone for bearing with me as I try to catch up on all the news of the day and give you guys some of that content, that sweet content you guys love, enjoy, and adore. Don't forget to check out the Discord server. I still have my Discord server. It's dscrd.ntw.cc. So place you want to be if you want to chat with me. You know, if you can send me messages, chat with other fans of the channel, but also you can suggest things for me to react to on stream. What I react to is influenced by what you guys want to see me react to. It doesn't even have to be a video, right? It can be a thread on X. It could even be a topic. It could be a news article, but you can be like, hey, why don't you talk about this sort of topic? I'll be like, all right, bet if it's interesting to me, then I'll go for it. So don't be shy. Send me things to react to. I do have to head out, but thanks to everyone for tuning in. I do appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks to everyone on YouTube, everyone on Kick, everyone on Rumble who tuned in. Hope you guys enjoyed tuning into me on whatever platform you prefer. Let me know in the comments down below, in the live chat, or on my Discord server if you think I should start streaming on Twitch now that they have the the multi-chat thing, the unified chat policy a little bit loosened for all of us now. But anyways, that's all I got. Thanks for tuning in. Peace out.